This video started out just as some general maintenance, then it started smoking, then when I topped up the coolant it ran out the exhaust, and it descended into chaos from there.
It's really just basic thermodynamics.
Let's work on the head first. So we have two immediate problems. One is that coolant is coming out of the exhaust, and that's never a great sign, I don't think.
That's not right.
Alright, let's pretend like I've pulled this head before.
If anybody was curious on how my day was going, yeah, never seen that before.
Alright, so these heads are notoriously difficult to break loose, so I don't have high hopes that this is going to come off. So, already looking at the milkshake that we kind of got going on the inside of this head. It's not looking great. So after about a week of fighting with that head, I decided that I want no part of it, and it's not worth pulling off in the car. So I was like, well, I'll just pull the engine. And then I was like, well, if I'm gonna pull the engine, I'll do the transmission, and I'll do a 5-speed. It's like, well, if I'm pulling the engine and transmission to do a 5-speed, I might as well increase the horsepower of the car. It's like, well, if I'm doing increasing the horsepower of the car, I need to call and make and see how much that'll actually be. So I called a few places and they said, about $30,000. And I said, no thank you. So I said, what can I throw in there instead? And there were a lot of very terrible ideas tossed around. I went through maybe stringing like 4 Honda V4 Interceptor engines together to make a V12. That was just a little bit too long. I went through stringing 6 V-twin diesels together, and that was too long and weird. And then I was like, well, I could take 2 3.0 V6 diesel Jetta motors, the 3.0 TDIs together, and make a V12 diesel out of that. Basically what Volkswagen did when they did the V12. So ultimately, I was like, I've always wanted to test out my theory on how diesel locomotives work, but put it in a car, which is a constant speed, high efficiency diesel engine, and put a generator behind that drives some electric motors. So ultimately, after a lot of research on whether or not that would work, which it just wouldn't give me the efficiency that I wanted, I had to approach something different. And I think I may have come up with a solution. So let's have a quick crash course in engine efficiency. See, gasoline has a specific energy of around 46 megajoules per kilogram. When that is burned in a controlled environment, some of the energy is converted into work and some of it's converted into heat. In your thermodynamics class, you may see a gas engine referred to as a heat engine because it absorbs heat from a high temperature system and delivers it to a cold temperature heat sink, keeping some of the heat to do useful work. It's possible for a gasoline engine to get above about 50% thermal efficiency. However, in a car, this is a completely different story. Up to 70% of total power is emitted as heat, but without being turned into useful work. There's actually an old locomotive ad that said you can move 1 ton 500 miles on 1 gallon of diesel. Now, that's a bit of physics trickery, but it's absolutely possible, and it is exactly the point I'm trying to make. So let's go back to the beginning. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So where does it go? Well, let's say that I have a Jaguar going down the road at 60 miles an hour. So let's convert that to metric, so about 28 meters per second. We have a 1900 kilogram car, so 1/2 times 1900 times 28 to the power of 2 equals 744,800 joules, or about 1.2 gram meteor hitting Earth. If you want to bring that car to a stop, the energy has to go somewhere, so you press on the brakes and you press 2 surfaces together creating friction, and therefore 744,800 joules disappears as heat. According to the Federal Highway Administration, passenger vehicles consumed around 9 quintillion joules of energy in 2008, or 9 with about 18 zeros behind it, which is roughly about the same as if all the nuclear weapons in the world went off at once. Fun fact. Bringing this all together, an engine designed to be efficient at a specific RPM will be way more efficient than ones that's just okay at all of them. Furthermore, adapting a regeneration system like on hybrid cars with a battery pack could do two things: store energy that would otherwise be wasted in braking, and allow for additional acceleration power when you want to go fast. My goal is to combine all of the best parts of these individual systems, although this does have some challenges. The development of hybrid cars in the past decade makes the hybrid part of it fairly easy. Regen systems exist fairly frequently, both in existing products and DIY solutions. And finding an efficient diesel engine set for a fixed engine RPM isn't that much difficult either. Most gen sets are set, or welder units are set to run at a specific RPM. To avoid the loss of converting between mechanical and electrical and back, I want to connect the engine to the axle, but with a constant speed engine, I'm going to need a continuously variable transmission, or a CVT. Now, I know all of the Nissan guys watching just went into panic mode, and I get it, trust me. If it helps, I'm not an expert in CVTs either, so I did what I always do when I don't understand how things work. I try and build one myself, and this is how it went. So as you can see, this is really just a rough design tossed together. I was planning on using some linear actuators, and I was going to 3D print this and actually kind of build this on the stand, but I already hate it because of the friction loss between the belt and the drive wheels, and a few other things like that. So I'm going to try and refine this a little bit before I actually put it down into physical form, but it's very interesting to see how all this can come together. There's a few different versions of these, the original being penned by Da Vinci back in the 1400s. This is the most readily accessible one and the most common one around, but I might explore into a few more direct drive versions instead of using belts or other things like that. So I need to go through and do brakes on this, and I'll show you why in a minute. The calipers on this are toast. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this whole entire rear subassembly and do some bushings and stuff like that while I'm at it, because this is a Jag, this is an XJS, so inboard brakes, they're not out there like God intended. So yeah, I'm gonna get this pulled and drop down. It shouldn't be too bad. That's what they say. So as you can see, I don't think this has been out in a minute. So I'm gonna clean this up, get it washed off, and then start replacing some of these mounts. Ones like this just came off. So I think it was time to do this for sure. But this one's thin, but this one's the one that you can really see that we have some issues there. It's just started to come apart. So getting those out of there is gonna be a blast. So I was going to pull off rotors here because these are just bolted onto the things, and best I can tell, the only way to adjust camber on the back of this car is the amount of spacers in between this and the hub, because this is entirely independent and can just slide right off like that. So yeah, that's fun, I guess. I don't like that. I actually kind of hate that. I don't have an answer for it, but I don't like it. Alright, I got this all apart, and I had Moss Motors send over some parts here and there. I got some suspension rebuild kits and subframe mounts, then new rotors, which are absolutely needed. Wow. This thing's pretty toast. So yeah, I'm gonna get these tossed on real quick and try and get that subframe back together. I don't want you guys to think I'm building a hypermiling car or anything like that. This is really just, I mean, most of this channel is experimentation anyways, so the idea is that it's going to be something just a little bit different, a little bit new. I want to at least beat the performance of the car as it sits, which, given the performance of that factory motor, I don't think will be too hard. I mean, now that I put a bunch of suspension components on it, the chassis is great, the interior is pretty good. It's just the engine and transmission that's a little bit dated, and I'd really like to, I don't know, try something new. Most of this channel is experimentation anyways, so, I mean, that's part of the fun of it. This is going to be a little bit of a longer project, so it's going to take a few months to get this all put together, but I'll try and keep you guys updated as we go along. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, stuff like that, and thanks for watching.